YouTube. We're going to see how far we get. The internet seems to be really slow today, so we'll try our best. We are reading still the fascinating government document, the Roswell Report. It's published by the U.S. government, by the Air Force, and it's explaining what happened in Roswell in the late 1940s and into the 1950s with all the UFO sightings. It is crazy. They're saying it's from balloons and crash test dummies. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But here, I do know people that have seen UFO sightings. I have never seen a UFO sighting, but I do know some people that have, and I believe them. I don't think they're lying or making it up. I think they saw what they saw, and I believe them. Here is my shout out. It's my 5 pounds dumbbell. See? Look. I've been lifting weights, getting fit, and I've been using the 5 pound dumbbell. And this is my product placement. Is my notebook and my notebook paper. I don't use very much paper anymore. I used to go through a whole pack of notebook paper just to write things down, but now everything's on the computer, even just notes to self. And this is, I'll show you, I'm starting a new painting. And what I do, I don't know if you could see it very faintly, sketch out, just putting down the main points of what I'm going to do of the painting. And then I just color it in. It's that simple. I just color it in once I decide on what colors I want things to be. I keep in mind what I want the focal point to be in the painting. So that'll be sort of the brightest and most clear, and everything else can kind of go a little bit blurry or whatnot. So that's my newest little creation, is my painting. So let's just get on with this. Like I said, the internet is really slow today. I guess everyone and their brother is online this morning. It's cold and the weather is a little cold, so I guess everybody's staying in for the day. And let's get started. We're up to section 2.4, page 109, and it's titled Comparison of the Hospital Account to the Balloon Mishap. The balloon mishap near Roswell on May 21st, 1959, provides the probable explanation for some of the remaining elements of the incident profile: the red-headed captain, the unusual security at the hospital, the wreckage in the rear of an ambulance, and one portion of the accounts of aliens at the Roswell Air Force Hospital. The red-headed captain. It is highly probable that the descriptions of a red-headed captain are those of Captain Joseph W. Kittinger, Jr., now retired colonel. Kittinger, who has red hair, was present at the Walker Air Force Base Hospital the entire time the events involving the balloon mishap took place. This is the second Roswell account that describes a captain with red hair as related in section 1 of this report. A red-headed captain was also allegedly present at the crashed saucer site on the San Augustine Plains. That account was consistent with Kittinger's responsibilities as the Excelsior and Stargazer pilot and project officer. As project officer of 2 research programs that utilized high-altitude balloons, and as a chase pilot on many other high-altitude balloon missions, Kittinger often accompanied balloon launch and recovery crews. He was present both on the ground and in the air at balloon launch and recovery locations throughout New Mexico in the southwest United States to launch and retrieve anthropomorphic dummies used for Project Excelsior and unmanned test gondolas used for Project Stargazer. Following the accident, when the balloon pilots were transported to the Walker Air Force Base Hospital for medical treatment, Kittinger wanted to leave as soon as possible. He recalled in a recent interview that his desire to quickly leave Walker Air Force Base was to avoid the initiation of a formal accident investigation. He believed that an accident investigation might bring unwanted scrutiny to the Project Excelsior and delay or even cancel the controversial project. The controversy surrounding Project Excelsior was due to principally to the hazardous nature of the high-altitude escape research. Some senior research and development officials within the Air Force were reluctant to support a project that required a human subject to parachute from a balloon gondola at over 100,000 feet. An accident investigation at this juncture would most likely delay the human altitude freefall test scheduled for the fall of 1959 and may have resulted in cancellation of the project. While at the hospital, Kittinger consulted by phone with his commander, Colonel Stapp. Stapp agreed with Kittinger's assessment that a quick departure from the Walker Air Force Base Hospital after receiving appropriate medical attention was in the best interest of the project. The statements attributed to the red-headed captain, "You did not see anything," "There was no crash here," "You don't go into town making any rumors that you saw anything or that there was any crash," were consistent with Kittinger's desire to avoid an accident investigation. However, when interviewed for this report, neither Kittinger nor any of the other persons documented as having been present in the hospital that day recalled encountering Dennis. What may have led to an uninformed person, such as Dennis, to believe that they were witnessing or were told of an unusual or classified event was that when the injured balloon pilots arrived at the Walker Air Force Hospital, even though Project Excelsior was unclassified, Kittinger sought to limit disclosure of negative information and publicity. By 1959, having been the subject of intense media scrutiny following his June 1957 high-altitude balloon flight, Kittinger was aware of both the positive and negative aspects of publicity. In his 1961 book, The Long, Lonely Leap, Kittinger described his self-imposed secrecy regarding Project Excelsior. The secrecy imposed upon Excelsior was of our own choosing. We believed that any unnecessary conversation about our activities would simply be premature. When interviewed for this report, Kittinger further explained of Project Excelsior and the visit to the hospital at Walker Air Force Base. We didn't want someone not conversant with the project that we were hush-hush, that we were secretive. It might look like we were trying to cover up a classified mission. The allegations that the red-headed captain, in an apparent reference to Kittinger, threatened anyone while he was at the Walker Air Force Hospital are untrue. When interviewed for this report and in signed statements obtained from Kittinger, the other two balloon pilots, the doctor who treated them, the medic aboard the helicopter, and the balloon doctor who treated them, and the branch communications technician who were present at the hospital that day, none of them recalled that Kittinger was involved in an altercation or made threatening remarks to anyone. Involvement in an altercation with a civilian would have highlighted the presence of the balloon crew and possibly brought the type of negative publicity Kittinger sought to avoid. This would not only have violated Kittinger's policy of maintaining a low profile in regard to the Excelsior, but would be completely out of character for the seasoned test pilot. Throughout his career, Kittinger was renowned for his ability to maintain his composure in difficult, often life-threatening situations. He faced these situations as a test pilot, as a combat pilot and squadron commander in Southeast Asia, and as a prisoner of war while subjected to severe torture at the hands of the North Vietnamese and the pre-astronauts, which chronicles many of Kittinger's accomplishments in the field of aeronautics, including Project Excelsior and Stargazer. The author offered the following description of him. Kittinger was not Buck Rogers, nor was he a daredevil or thrill seeker. He was a modern-day test pilot, intense, focused, usually quiet and always polite, with firm religious convictions and a powerful sense of loyalty. If he was often stubborn, uncompromising, or demanding, he also dealt fairly and respectfully with those who came into contact with him. He was a straight arrow and a straight shooter. Colonel Joseph W. Kittinger, Jr., U.S. Air Force, retired. Yes, good morning, good morning. Hi, Caballero, good morning. I'm so happy to see you, Ruby. Nice to meet you. Leave your link in the chat so we can visit your channel and down below. So I'll visit you and check you out. I'll subscribe too. Colonel Joseph W. Kittinger, retired Air Force. Colonel Joseph Kittinger, Jr.'s career in the U.S. Air Force and in aviation has spanned the spectrum of experiences. Test pilot, balloon pilot, test parachutist, combat fighter pilot, MiG killer, combat squadron commander, and prisoner of war. He has demonstrated during a nearly 30-year military career and beyond that he is among the very best in the U.S. Air Force and in the field of aeronautics. Kittinger began his career in 1949 as a U.S. Air Force aviation cadet. After earning his wings in Las Vegas, Nevada in March of 1950, he was assigned to fighter squadrons in Germany and then as a test pilot for NATO. In 1953, Kittinger received an assignment as a test pilot to Holloman Air Force Base, New Mexico. While at Holloman, he began a many-year collaboration with the legendary Air Force scientist and physician Colonel John P. Stapp. In association with Stapp on numerous aeromedical projects, Kittinger became the first pilot to fly zero-gravity experiments now commonly used for astronaut training. For Project Man High on June 2, 1957, Kittinger piloted a high-altitude balloon to 96,000 feet to examine the physiological and psychological effects on man and space equivalent environment. This flight marked the origins of the manned U.S. space program, with the experience gained from Man High being incorporated in NASA's Project Mercury. After Man High, and again in association with Stapp, Kittinger directed Project Excelsior, a study of human freefall characteristics following aircraft escape and at extreme high altitudes. After extensive testing with anthropomorphic dummies, Kittinger made 3 parachute jumps from high-altitude balloons, 76,400 feet on November the 16th, 1959, 74,700 feet on December the 11th, 1959, and 102,800 feet on August the 16th, 1960. For these courageous scientific achievements, Kittinger was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Harmon Trophy, by President Eisenhower, the still standing world record for highest parachute jump and length of freefall, and the distinction of being the only living person to exceed the speed of sound without an aircraft or spacecraft. With the completion of Excelsior, Kittinger became the pilot, project officer, and project engineer for Stargazer, an astronomical observation experiment. This was the third and final Air Force manned high-altitude balloon project Kittinger had flown in all 3. In 1963, he was assigned to the Air Commandos, now Special Operations, and flew 2 combat tours in Southeast Asia and B-26 and A-26 aircraft. After a tour in Germany as a liaison officer with the U.S. Armed Special Forces, Kittinger returned to Southeast Asia in 1971, flying F-4 aircraft and commanding the famous 555th Triple Nickel Tactical Fighter Squadron at Udorn Air Force Base, Thailand. On March 1st, 1972, Kittinger engaged and destroyed a MiG-21 over North Vietnam and is credited with an aerial victory. On May the 11th, 1972, after 483 combat missions and more than 1,000 combat flying hours, Kittinger was shot down over Hanoi and spent 11 months as a POW in the famous Hanoi Hilton. When placed with other POWs following solitary confinement and severe torture, Kittinger was moved repeatedly by his North Vietnamese captors due to his effectiveness in motivating other prisoners to maintain strong resistance postures. Kittinger retired from the Air Force in 1978 and became involved in both sport aircraft flying and gas ballooning. He operated Rosie O'Grady's Flying Circus in his hometown of Orlando, Florida, performing skywriting, banner towing, and hot air and helium balloon demonstrations at nearby Walt Disney World. He also captured the coveted Gordon Bennett Gas Balloon Championship an unprecedented 4 times, 3 consecutively, entitling him to retire the trophy. In September 1984, Kittinger made history again when, in the tradition of Lindenberg, he became the first person to make a solo crossing of the Atlantic Ocean by balloon. Kittinger's military decorations included the Silver Star with 1 oak leaf cluster, Legion of Merit with 1 oak leaf cluster, Distinguished Flying Cross with 5 oak leaf clusters, Bronze Star Medal with V device and 2 oak leaf clusters, Air Medal with 23 oak leaf clusters, Purple Heart with 1 oak leaf cluster, POW Medal, and the Republic of Vietnam Cross of Gallantry with palm. Kittinger's indomitable spirit, personal courage, and dedication to duty are legendary. His ability to achieve seemingly unattainable objectives while earning the respect and absolute loyalty of those who served with him defines his rare breed of warrior leader. On October 1995, he received yet another honor and was named a recipient of the prestigious Elder Statesman of Aviation Award by the National Aeronautics Association. This honor is bestowed upon an individual who over a period of years has made significant contributions to aeronautics and for reflecting credit upon himself in America. Without a doubt, there are few that exemplify this virtue more than this truly distinctive American, Joseph W. Kittinger, Jr. The wreckage in the rear of the ambulance. The various types of wreckage described in the rear of an ambulance at Walker Air Force Base Hospital also appear to be related to the 1959 balloon accident. Some of this wreckage allegedly had odd inscriptions touted by UFO theorists as alien hieroglyphics. A requirement of balloon pilot training missions were that they be closely monitored by balloon recovery and medical personnel. Ground crews from Holloman Air Force Base followed the balloon flight from its launch site there to its landing site 10 miles northwest of Roswell. 2 of the vehicles that followed the balloon were Dodge M43 3/4-ton field ambulances, and a third was an M37 3/4-ton utility vehicle or weapons carrier. 1 ambulance was assigned to this mission for its standard use, a medical response vehicle. The other ambulance had been converted by the Holloman Air Force Balloon Branch and served as a communications vehicle on balloon recovery missions. The additional communications equipment mounted in the rear compartment of the ambulance drastically altered what someone expected to see in an ambulance of this type. Dennis related that he was walking fast when he observed what he thought was wreckage in the rear of an ambulance. This quick glance apparently resulted in descriptions of 2 pieces of wreckage leaning against the interior of the rear compartment of the ambulance that was kind of like the bottom of a canoe, like stainless steel, with kind of a bluish purple tinge to it. UFO theorists have suggested that these objects were alien spaceship escape pods recovered by the Army Air Forces. However, this appears to be a remarkably accurate description of 2 steel panels painted Air Force blue on a converted ambulance used by the balloon branch for this mission. The inscription, or something, the so-called hieroglyphics, were probable references to the lettering painted on the equipment support rack above the panels. The lettering on the rack would be visible, but probably not readable to an observer that quickly walked past the ambulance. Other wreckage all over the floor that was like broken glass was a probable reference to the clear plastic 30-foot polyethylene balloon that was recovered following the balloon training mission and placed in the back of the converted ambulance or the weapons carrier for later disposal. And this is a picture that I think is important. Dennis also recalled that he parked the vehicle he was driving near 3 field ambulances and then walked up the ramp into the hospital. The description of ambulances near a ramp is consistent with the recollections of the balloon branch communication technician who drove the converted ambulance to Walker Air Force Hospital following the balloon accident. While waiting for the injured pilots, A2C Ole Jorgensen, now a retired master sergeant, recalled in a recent interview that he parked the converted ambulance near a ramp at the hospital. A review of Walker Air Force Base Hospital records revealed that there was only 1 ramp. The ramp was attached to the hospital dispensary, Walker Air Force Base Building 317. The other ambulances described by the witnesses were either the other ambulance from Holloman Air Force Base that provided medical support of the balloon flight or the 2 standby ambulances that in May 1959 were routinely positioned adjacent to the ramp behind the dispensary at Walker Air Force Base. Additional security at the Walker Air Force Base Hospital. The witness described what appeared to be a heightened state of security at the hospital when he allegedly took the injured airman there for treatment. UFO theorists contend the heightened security at the hospital was because alien remains were being autopsied. However, it appears that the witness described the security measures taken by Walker Air Force Base personnel due to the unusual circumstances at the arrival of the balloon crew. In 1959, Walker Air Force Base was a part of the 47th Air Division of Strategic Air Command. It was home of the 6th Bombardment Wing, 6BW, equipped with the nuclear-capable B-52 Stratofortress bomber. The 509th BW was reassigned to Pease AFB Air Force Base in New Hampshire on July 1, 1958. The mission of the 6BW to strike the enemy with nuclear weapons anywhere in the world at a moment's notice demanded a heightened state of security at all times. One of the methods instituted during this period to maintain the high standards of security and effectiveness of SAC units was unannounced surprise visits of headquarters SAC inspection teams. A favored method of transportation for these surprise visits was a helicopter. When an SAC inspection team landed at a base, often the first evaluation they made was of the security response to their unannounced arrival. Failure of the security personnel to properly challenge unidentified visitors, regardless of their method of arrival, was considered a serious breach of security. When transported to Walker Air Force Base for medical treatment, unexpected and at an early hour, the balloon crew, not surprisingly, was met by armed security personnel. The security personnel escorted them to the hospital and remained with them until their identities and purpose of their visit were verified. Kaufman, one of the balloon pilots, recalled that their presence at the Walker Air Force Base was initially met with skepticism. The helicopter pilot called the tower and said, having come from an experimental base, it was nothing unusual for him to have a balloon accident. We've got an injured pilot on board. There's been a balloon accident, and we would like the flight surgeon and an ambulance to meet us at the tower. The tower established the fact that, yes, we were an Air Force chopper and that we seemed to have somebody injured, and what we have been doing, we had been shooting touch-and-go landings in a balloon. We got clearance to land right in front of the tower, and we were met by an ambulance and several MPs with machine guns. According to the medical technician who arrived on the helicopter with the pilots, he had difficulty persuading a flight surgeon to attend to the injured pilots. Sergeant Ronald H. Lutz, now a retired Chief Master Sergeant, recalled when he first contacted the Walker Air Force Base Hospital, explaining that he had 3 persons injured with a gondola accident. The flight surgeon told him to go home and sleep it off. Fogman, the injured pilot, recalled that when they got to the hospital, there was this controversy going on in the hospital about who in the hell we were. We weren't supposed to be there, and nobody knew anything about Air Force officers flying balloons. We could have been trying to penetrate the security. Walker Air Force Base security officials were satisfied at the pilots' identities when they spoke to Colonel Stapp, commander of the Aeromedical Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. The red-headed captain and Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Captain Kittinger, the Stargazer high-altitude balloon pilot and project engineer, had extensive professional contact with Dr. J. Allen Hynek, an astronomer and Stargazer project scientist. Additionally, Hynek was also one of the scientific consultants in the Air Force study of UFOs, Project Blue Book. Hynek is best known, however, for his apparent endorsement of extraterrestrial theories concerning UFOs after concluding his association with the Air Force. When asked about his recollections of Hynek, Kittinger stated that when they were associated from 1958 to 1963, they discussed UFOs at length. At that time, Hynek was steadfast in his opinion that most, if not all, UFO sightings could be resolved by applying known scientific analysis. Kittinger said he was flabbergasted when years later Hynek appeared to reverse his opinion and endorse extraterrestrial explanations. Hynek's reversal in philosophies led to numerous commercial endeavors, most notably as a technical advisor for his science fiction film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Also based on his experience with Project Stargazer, Hynek was familiar with balloon operations at Holloman Air Force Base, visiting the Holloman Balloon Branch several times. Interestingly, there is no record that Hynek, who died in 1986, ever endorsed what is now presented as the best evidence of UFOs, the so-called Roswell incident, which was actually a conglomeration of numerous events, some with origins in the Holloman Air Force Base launched balloons. Now we will stop there. This next section is called The Alien at the Hospital. Wow, this gets better and better. Well, actually, we can finish it. This is only a couple of pages, and then we'll finish a whole big section. So we'll read this part. The Alien at the Hospital. In at least one account of the Roswell incident, a witness claimed he observed a creature walk under its own power into the hospital. While the specifics of this particular sighting cannot be verified, the injury that caused Fogham's head to swell, resembling the classic science fiction alien head, makes this account and some others that at first appeared to be the work of overactive imagination seem possible. When the balloon gondola struck Fulgham's head, he received, according to his clinical record from May 21st, 1959, an extensive hematoma forehead and an anterior scalp. A hematoma is a localized blood-filled swelling that in this instant was on the forehead. The hematoma resulted in immediate facial swelling. 2 black eyes later caused his skin to turn yellow. The rapid onset of the swelling caused both of Fulgham's eyes to close as it progressed, according to Kittinger, who accompanied Fulgham to the hospital. His whole face had swollen up and his nose barely protruded. This appearance led Kittinger to characterize Fulgham's appearance at the time as just a big blob and grotesque. When interviewed, Fulgham remembered that even though he didn't feel bad, I didn't know how bad I looked. There was no attempt to hide or limit Fulgham's exposure to persons in the hospital that day. In fact, when he arrived at the hospital, Fulgham recalled that he stopped outside the building to smoke a cigarette. Kaufman also recalled that the injured pilots, Fulgham and Kittinger, waited for treatment on a bench in the hallway of the hospital. Kaufman added that a number of military wives were present in the hospital that day for prenatal care, and there was no effort to keep Fulgham from their view. Bodies with large heads in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. UFO theorists contend that the U.S. Army Air Forces secretly shipped the alien bodies with large heads to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for further processing and deep freeze storage. However, it is likely that in this account, this is a reference to Fulgham's return to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base following the balloon mishap. Although Fulgham did not require hospitalization at Walker Air Force Base upon his return to Holloman Air Force Base, he was admitted to the base hospital for observation. 3 days later, on May 24, 1959, the balloon pilots were flown from Holloman to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base on a specially arranged flight aboard a C-131 hospital aircraft. The return to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was directed by Stapp and coordinated by Kittinger. The preliminary arrangements for this flight were made by Kittinger while the Walker Air Force Base Hospital. Kittinger recalled the conversations with Stapp regarding their return to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base were made by phone in busy areas of the hospital, and these conversations could have been overheard by nearly anyone present. Upon their arrival at Wright-Patterson, Fulgham, who Kittinger did not want to transport on a commercial flight due to his odd appearance, still could not open his eyes and had to be led down the steps of the aircraft. Kittinger recalled that Fulgham's wife was waiting at the bottom of the aircraft steps when they arrived. They dropped the ramp and I looked down at the bottom and there was Dan Fulgham's wife. Kittinger said, Dan couldn't see, so I grabbed him by the arm. Dan's wife sees me leading the blob down the staircase. She looks right at me and says, "Where's my husband?" I said, "Ma'am, this is your husband." I presented her with this blob that I was leading down the ramp, and she let out this scream you could hear a mile away. He was such a horrendous looking thing that she had no idea that the thing I was leading down the ramp was her husband. Fulgham recalled that upon his return to work at the Aeromedical Laboratory, he received reactions of immediate compassionate sympathy from persons he encountered, including his secretary, who cried when she saw him. Within several weeks, Fulgham returned to flying status with no permanent effects. Fulgham went on to complete a distinguished career in the Air Force and retired as a colonel in 1978. Fulgham's assignments included combat tours in fighter aircraft in both Korea and Vietnam, as well as an assignment as an experimental parachutist and physiologist for the space program. In this section, now we're up to the summary. In this section, documented research revealed that the reports of bodies at the Roswell Air Force Hospital were grossly inaccurate and most probably had origins in actual Air Force mishaps. Examinations of official records of the alleged primary witnesses revealed that the missing nurse was never missing and the pediatrician did not arrive at the Walker Air Force Hospital until 1951, 4 years after the alleged incident. The many fundamental errors in the story, combined with the substantial similarities to the actual mishaps, show that the most credible account associated with the Roswell incident is certainly not extraterrestrial and is unrelated to any events that occurred in July 1947. Oh my goodness, well, we will stop there. This next section is called Conclusion, and we're up to page 123 of the Roswell Report. This is very, very fascinating. I never knew about that. I always thought it was aliens, but apparently the government says it was crash balloons and dummies, but who knows? I wonder what you think. This is my shout out. Is my 5-pound dumbbell. I've been lifting weights, getting fit, getting strong. And this is my product placement, is my green notebook. I think I got this at Walmart. I don't use as much paper as I used to. I used to have to write things down and all, but and have a notebook at all times with me. But nowadays, we just don't use notebooks anymore, right? We just put it on our phones. And this is a painting I'm starting. You can see I lightly sketch out the silhouette of the image, and then I just color it in. It's that simple. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm glad that you're here. Let me know you were here, and I'll visit your channel, and I'll subscribe. I'll watch your videos because I really do want to see what you're up to. So I hope you have a great day. Give me a kiss. Happy Saturday.